Welcome back everyone, and it's time to go ballsy! Today we are covering every single devil in Black Clover, explaining the entire story regarding all their powers, their story, and how Tabata created them via the inspirations he took from the Kabbalah and the Qliphoth rituals we have in real life. Which means you guessed it, yes, I read the devil books again just for you to create this video.
Oh, scary! Oh, shiver my timbers!
So who are the devils in Black Clover? Devils are an ancient race of magical and evil beings that dwell in the underworld of Black Clover. In chapter 268, we were shown Asta's brother's backstory. His name is Liebe, and he told us that it's a harsh world where the devil's amusement comes from tormenting each other, but the greatest of fun that they have is toying with the humans of the living world. In normal circumstances, devils cannot appear in the living world on their own. Again, in chapter 268, we can see a gate-like barrier that kills them if they attempt to go through it to go to the living world. For example, when Liebe was thrown towards the gate by a higher ranked demon bullying him, he expected to die and splatter. However, because Liebe was monoless, it meant he was able to go straight through to the human world. So since they can't leave the underworld through normal means, another way is a mage in the living world using forbidden magic and a sacrifice to summon a devil and use some of its power revealed to us in chapter 222. However, the amount of devil power a person can use is limited due to the gate between the living world and the underworld being closed. For example, Dante was limited to use 80% of Lucifer's power rather than 100%. Furthermore, using forbidden magic also limits a mage on how they can wield devil power, because if you use too much, then you will be tarnished by Weg, which Julius mentioned to Sekri. That's why she transformed into a bird for several hundred years, or Licht losing control as the demon god against Lumiere, the first wizard king. The user becomes something they formerly were not. In chapter 198, according to Zagred, a high-ranked demon, devils cannot wield or enter a grimoire until it has a 5-leaf clover. Once they have a grimoire and a physical body, they can unleash their true forms and power in the living world. It's most likely that Zagred was summoned from the underworld in his ghastly state via a ritual through a sacrifice or a spell that went wrong, much like how Nacht tried to summon Lucifugus, and that went wrong due to the sheer presence and the magic being too much. Zagred could have defeated the person that summoned him, or someone must have tried to seek power via his totem, which would then cause him to be released from the underworld without a body. Now, before I go even further into explaining every single devil, I have to first explain the Tree of Qliphoth spell, as this is linked to every single devil as another way that they can escape the underworld. The number one objective of the Dark Triad is the recreation of the Tree of Qliphoth channel. This magic channel acts as the route between the underworld and earth. At each level of the channel is a gate that stops other devils moving between each level. 10 devils are spread throughout the levels, and as each gate to their level is opened, they are released into the human world. The lower down the gate you get, the stronger the devil that comes out, and this is why the Dark Triad aims to open the gate. In order to do so, they require 2 key components in order to do the ritual known as the Qliphoth Advent ritual. The first one is a magic circle combining world tree magic and dark magic. The dark magic from Yami is necessary to carry the power through to the underworld, dyeing William's world tree magic black. Secondly, a larger magic circle is needed with the 3 mages standing around it, acting as a catalyst for the ritual. By the end of the ritual, which takes a week until it reaches completion, Yami and William ultimately die as sacrifices. Once before in history, the Tree of Qliphoth had been opened. causing complete destruction across an entire continent, massacring 90% of human population. Lola Pacheca inherited this memory from the former Heart Kingdom queen, and Moris is using this same information extracted from her. He discovered a way to speed up the process of the gates opening. Once the first gate to the underworld has opened, the Dark Triad gain access to 100% of their devil powers. Black Clover Chapter 246 confirms that the Tree of Life is connected to the concept of the Jewish Kabbalah, as the counterpart is called the Tree of Death. Comparing the designs side by side, you can see that Tabata took this illustration from the Kabbalah. One heavy aspect of the Kabbalah is the depiction of both light and darkness as necessary aspects of the world system. So when Dante explains the plan to Yami, we see the concept of the Tree of Death, which in Kabbalah translates to the Qliphoth. Qliphoth means the emanations of the left side, and it's a way to describe evil that oppose the Sephiroth. These shells or husks are representations of evil or impure spiritual forces in Jewish mysticism. They are the opposite of the holy Sephiroth, which Black Clover used as elves. The realm of evil is also termed Sitra or Ahra, or the other side, which confirms why the word magic devil Zagred called his magic otherworldly and kept talking in that manner, because Tabata got inspired from this concept. The Qliphoth are metaphorical shells surrounding holiness that obscure the divine light of the Sephiroth. The Qliphoth are represented by demons who live in what they call the palaces of impurity. Whilst the Qliphoth are seen as evil, they are a necessary aspect of creation. Without something obscuring the full light of God, it would overwhelm reality, and reality as we know it would actually cease to exist. This explains why the Dark Triad and Dante say to Asta, Yami, and pretty much everyone that he believes evil emotions are part of being human, and that being evil is a necessary part of life and the purest of emotion. Lucifer and the Dark Triad are playing the role of the Qliphoth concept within Black Clover, as he represents the polar opposite of the 10 apostles of Sephiroth. In the Satanic Temple of the Black Light, it depicts the Sephiroth as restrictive and the Qliphoth as liberating, saying that they are a process of freeing yourself from the forces of the Sephiroth. They are breaking off from the universal order as acceptable. Now again, this is why the Dark Triad and every villain linked with devils are playing this role accordingly in the story regarding the restrictive nature of Asta's ideology of what he can actually become if he gives in to his evil emotions, as he stated to Dante that being a good person means striving to suppress your negativity. Whilst the Qliphoth are seen as evil, they are a necessary aspect of creation. Without something obscuring the full light of God, it would overwhelm reality, and reality as we know it would actually cease to exist. This explains why the Dark Triad and Dante say to Asta, Yami, and pretty much everyone that he believes evil emotions are part of being human, and that being evil is a necessary part of life and the purest of emotion. Lucifer and the Dark Triad are playing the role of the Qliphoth concept within Black Clover, as he represents the polar opposite of the 10 apostles of Sephiroth. In the Satanic Temple of the Black Light, it depicts the Sephiroth as restrictive and the Qliphoth as liberating, saying that they are a process of freeing yourself from the forces of the Sephiroth. They are breaking off from the universal order as acceptable. Now again, this is why the Dark Triad and every villain linked with devils are playing this role accordingly in the story regarding the restrictive nature of Asta's ideology of what he can actually become if he gives in to his evil emotions, as he stated to Dante that being a good person means striving to suppress your negativity. Now, since you can summon a devil or encounter one, you can perform a devil binding ritual on them. In this ritual, you have to fight and subjugate the devil in order to make a formal contract with it to use its power as your own. The connection is created through a relic or totem linked to the devil. For example, Nacht has a necklace which has 4 different relics linked to his is 4 different devils. One is a feather for the bird type. So through this connection, the devil can temporarily be physically manifested in the living world. The ritual takes place within a magic circle that suppresses the devil's power. If the relic is destroyed during the ritual, then the spell will end prematurely and the devil will be sent back to the underworld. If the host wins the fight whilst doing the ritual, the devil's neck is bound and staked to the floor, and at that time the host is free to make any contract they desire with the devil, including total subjugation. This would give them full command of the devil's power. The host can easily use the Unite transformation, a special form available to hosts since they can use the full power of the devil and assimilate them into their body in a fusion. This fusion enables them to contain and control the power of the devil and dramatically increase their own magic power and capabilities. If you use Unite, since it's part of Weg magic, you will take on the physical traits of the devil, such as their horns, in more powerful Unite mode. Nacht performed this against Nahamah and Lillith, which increased his power level equal to a high-ranked devil like Zagred. On the other hand, since Asta and his brother Liebe formed a contract of equals, which has never been done before, this contract makes it so that the devil retains autonomy. With this contract, both parties receive matching markings on their wrists of the host and the devil. With this unique contract, of course, activating the Unite mode is more difficult as it requires the host and the devil to work together and synchronize their thoughts and feelings. Asta and Liebe were able to achieve this by thinking about their love for their mother Lucifugus and also wanting to save the world by destroying the devils that threaten the safety of others. Now don't get me wrong, if you're not a shonen protagonist and the devil wins in the ritual, it would take full control of the host's body and transform them into a grotesque monster. We are shown an example of this via the hundreds and hundreds of humans who have attempted the ritual and failed. Their skulls decorate the chamber where Asta actually undergoes the exact same ritual. Let's move on to how devils can be defeated in Black Clover, since pretty much all of them have died. We are told by the story that the only ways to counter devil magic are with anti-magic, negative mana, arcane stage magic, saint stage magic, and other devil magic. A devil's heart is its most vital body part. As long as the heart remains intact, the devil could eventually recover, even if the rest of its body is destroyed, as we've seen with Zagred and Zenon. The heart is also the most resilient part of the devil, with high-ranking devil's hearts surviving ultimate magic attacks seen in chapter 207, where Zagred's heart survived Lich's Aeon attack, which took mana from himself and all the other elves combined, but he still survived. Even Zenon's heart tanked offensive spatial magic in chapter 308, where it's stated that requiring arcane or saint stage magic is needed to destroy it. Additionally, a devil's heart is not always located in the chest and could be shifted to different parts of the body. When a devil's heart is destroyed, its body disintegrates and they finally experience death, which according to devils is extremely rare for them to even lose a fight, as Nahamah and Lillith, for example, never felt fear, even the feeling of fear, for over 300 years or more.
Okay, now before we dive any deeper, I would like to address a question a lot of you ask us about in the comment section and on social media. What editing software do you use or recommend? Because I want to learn how to edit like you guys at ABD. Well, what if I told you I can safely and confidently recommend an efficient and easy to use video editor with powerful tools, huh? I want to introduce to you guys Filmora 10. A lot of you guys are inspired to become YouTubers, and this is a step in the right direction because with this video editor you can make memes, create videos videos with photos, pictures, music, stickers, sound effects, you name it. You can even use it for whatever platform you want, be it YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, WhatsApp, or even Twitter. And one of my absolute favourite features is the AR stickers. These make editing videos a far more interesting and fun experience, and it's easy too. I mean, just look at this. With a simple drag and a drop, I've made Adil into a cute little bunny. Anyway, what's even better, right, is Filmstock. Filmstock has a massive library of over 10 million assets. And it just keeps growing. Oh, wait, you thought I was done? Well, you can even try Filmora 10 for free. So, sign up using the link in the pinned comment and description below and get creating. Now, back to the video.
Now, let me explain what are devil rankings in Black Clover. In chapter 268, we were told the devils have developed a hierarchy in which their placements amongst the ranks are assigned at birth and are unable to change. A devil will never disobey one with a higher level than their own. The underworld is purely run on power and is divided into 7 layers and is ruled over by 3 highest ranking devils who manipulate gravity magic, time magic, and space magic. They reside at the lowest level. We know Lucifer holds gravity magic, Beelzebub has space, and the time devil will be revealed with most likely the 4th Socrates sibling that has manipulated them all. Each level houses devils of various ranks, with the highest ranking devil dominating all those on their level. Because the underworld is so bleak and it's so boring and there's nothing to do, higher ranked devils keep themselves entertained by torturing those of the lower ranks, whilst the lower ranked devils then torment those who are even lower, and so on and so forth. At the very bottom of the underworld, we have the low tier devils. These devils are the equivalent to peasants of the living world. These devils have little to no power in their world, and their only role in life is to get thrashed around by devils of higher rank. During the opening of the Tree of Qliphoth, hordes of low tier demons were released at the first 2 levels. Remember, the earliest level hosts are the weakest of all devils. Even though they're the filthiest, weakest, and the most worthless beings in the underworld, we can't say that it's the same case when they crawl their way into the real world. To kill low tier devils, a mage has to use at least ultimate magic spells that releases a large amount of mana. A fodder character wouldn't be able to even defeat a low tier devil just for the sake of how powerful their mana is and how their devil heart works. On the other hand, since this is Black Clover and the Clover Kingdom and others did have their training arc, it means that any strong mage with a wide area of effect spell can deal with them effectively, reducing their existence to simply an annoyance. The only notable and most important, the GOAT low tier devil is Libardirt, who resides in Asta's 5-leaf grimoire. We all know that Libardirt is a crucial part of Black Clover, as he's deeply connected to our protagonist Asta. If you don't remember the story too well, then let me summarize Libardirt's background and his connection with him. Firstly, Libardirt was born in the first layer of the underworld, where his job was to be a toy for the high-ranking devils since he didn't have a single ounce of magic. In fact, he was the lowest of rank in the entire underworld, which meant every single devil was allowed to bully him. During one of the infinite torture sessions, as this was part of his everyday life since even existing, a high-ranking devil was so ticked off that he threw Libardirt so high that he was about to hit the underworld's gate. Accepting his fate, Libardirt was ready to die. Death seemed better than endless torture in hell for obvious reasons. However, things didn't go as he had expected them to be, since Libardirt didn't have any magic whatsoever. The gate didn't register him and simply let him pass through and enter into the world of the living. Once he arrived, he kept walking endlessly and he ended up in the peasant realm of the Clover Kingdom. There, people were terrified of the poor little devil and called the magic knights on him. Libardirt ran away and he was discriminated against and bullied just as he was in the underworld. He ran away from the knights for for as long as he could, finally fainting in a forest, accepting his death. To his surprise, however, he woke up in a warm bed inside the house next to a waifu. There he was greeted by a bright, cheerful woman whose personality is, well, you know, quite similar to Asta at the very least. This person was named Lillith. The woman had found our little devil injured in the forest and decided to take him in. We then get to know that there's something weird about Lillith. Apparently, Lillith absorbs the mana of people around them subconsciously at all times. Due to this, she was forced to live outside her village of Hajj. Since Liebe has no magic and no place to go, she asks him to live with her as her foster child, to which he agrees. She also gave him the name Liebe, which means love in German. Asta's mother felt comfort in look aftering a baby, even if it was a devil, as she was cast aside by society just like them. On top of that, she had to give Asta away at the church, so she found confinement in having a baby again that she could look after to recover her own misery and loneliness, as no one in the entire world wanted to be around her. As things start to get all nice and comfy for Liebe, they're having a good time, they fall in love with each other like mother and son. Lucifero, the king of hell, comes to know that a small punk has entered the living world through the underworld rumors. Angered, he tried to take control of Liebe, which turns into a very ugly incident. Whilst Lucifer could barely use a fraction of his power through Liebe, he still was too strong for Lillith to handle. However, her curse of absorbing mana forced Lucifer to retreat, but in the end, he was still able to attack her out of spite, resulting in her death. In her last moments, she sealed Liebe into her 5-leaf grimoire that she happened to found, which was the one that Licht created and Sekri was trying to find to protect. Lucifer promised that he would get his revenge and come to the living world once again, whilst Liebe was then stuck in the grimoire and had lost his mother. Liebe went from being surrounded by a person who he loved and was loved back to being stuck in a pitch black empty space, alone with his own thoughts. He thought his life had a great 180 change after being tortured so much that he can finally experience what life is all about, but that was all taken away by Lucifer. So there, he spent more than 16 years inside the grimoire, cursing the devils and his hate for the race as it kept growing, non-stop cussing them out. Over time, he grew older and thus grew stronger, along with his hate for the devils, causing him to develop the ability to cancel out magic, and we call that anti-magic. That's when our protagonist Asta comes into the picture, because when he turned 15 years old, Asta was picked by the 5-leaf grimoire. This means that Asta and Liebe are brothers. Liebe could spot the uncanny similarities between Asta and his mother Lillith, which made him hesitate in his battle against him. Whilst expecting to be put into a contract that would kill his free will, Asta decides to make things equal, since he felt like he owed Liebe his life and he was in debt to him, since Liebe, the anti-magic demon, he was using his magic his whole career and he was the one that saved him countless times throughout the story. To me, their relationship is clearly more than just two people with the same goals. Whilst they've become good friends at this point, it should be apparent that this is only the start of their deep bond. Their love for the people they cared about is deep rooted in the same way as their mother. Whilst the two aren't connected by blood, their brotherly bond will surely grow to be stronger. Take Asta and Yuno for example. The two aren't connected by blood, but their love and respect for each other so much requires them to surpass their limits each time that they think about each other and their rivalry and goal to be Wizard King. In the same way, Asta and Liebe's bond will grow as well, as they want to save the entire world against the devils and in fact have very similar personalities. It will grow to a point where the two essentially seem like one. Their thoughts and actions will match each other without needing to speak a word, especially since they have experienced similar racism, prejudice and backgrounds. It would be like a perfect relationship between a host and symbiote where the soul of the two beings essentially become one. If you want a complete overall story and in-depth analysis of Asta and Liebe's story, then I suggest for you to watch the video being displayed to you right now.
So So, mid-tier demons can be seen as the equivalent to the commoners of the overworld. They're not the weakest devils out there, but there's nothing really special about them either. They get thrashed around by the ones above them and proceed to do the same to the ones below them. They seem to live average lives, quite befitting of their hierarchical status. In terms of appearance, they're taller than humans and almost always have a humanoid shape. However, their body structure is always disproportionate. All of Nacht's devils, namely, I'm gonna get these pronunciations so wrong, Gimadello, Slotos, Plumede, and Wagner are all mid-tier devils. When facing high-ranked devils like Nahamah and Lillith, you can see clearly that Nacht's devils are shaking in fear, as they know the difference between them and a supreme tier devil is far too great. When pitched against humans, however, mid-tier devils are quite deadly, as it's at this stage that even ultimate magic cannot kill them and they have to be killed via arcane magic. However, that doesn't mean that you can't stop them without arcane magic, as we saw Luck decapitate some mid-tier devils which made them unable to fight. It is considered to be a great feat to make a dominant contract with a mid-tier devil, even in their suppressed forms. Nacht was seen as an unparalleled prodigy because of being able to make a devil binding contract with 4 of them. Overall, mid-tier devils are nothing but average in the underworld. They live with what they're given while they torment the ones below them to entertain themselves. But before we carry on, let's take a look at Nacht's devils as our test subjects to understand the mid-tier devils in detail. Wagner is a crow-looking devil who Nacht put under a dominant contract when he was young. When Nacht merges with Wagner to form the Devil Union, the mode is called Gallus. In this form, Nacht grows a pair of wings, wears a dark coat, a hat, has a crow-like face, yada yada. In short, he looks like a total badass. In this mode, his power increases exponentially and he gains another cool ability. He can use a crow that lets out a loud cry, and anybody who hears it is paralyzed temporarily. It seems like that the duration of the paralysis depends, however, on the victim's power level. Anyway, next up we have Gilmodello. This large devil with an orange dog-shaped mask seems a bit scary at first, but he's really just a small, cheerful little fellow. From the very first moment, Gilmodello likes to tease people and have fun, as we witnessed in his interaction with Asta. With that said though, let's take a look at his powers. When Nacht uses his union form of Gilmodello, the form is known as Canis. In this mode, Nacht gains the ability Pack, which allows him to create clones of himself. These clones are completely indistinguishable from the real Nacht to most people, except for the high-ranking devils. This is obviously a great ability that gives both offensive and defensive advantages to Nacht. In this form, Nacht kinda looks like a ninja slash samurai, but with a weird hat on. Moving on to the third devil though, Slotos. He's a rather enigmatic one. We know nothing about his personality after all. In terms of appearance though, Slotos has black horns and wears a purple coloured horse-shaped mask. Its union form with Nacht is known as Ekus. I'm fully aware, by the way, that I'm getting all of these pronunciations wrong, okay?
Shut the fuck up, bitch.
Anyway, this form grants heightened physical strength to Nacht, as Slotos' attribute is toughness. In this mode, Nacht is able to tank multiple heavy hits and is even able to move in Dante's immense gravity magic. And then the very last mid-ranking devil we know of is Plumede. Plumede is again large and has black horns. He also wears a mask as well, and this mask is grey in colour and has a cat-like shape. While we don't know much about his personality either, it did shiver in fear when Nahamah and Lillith emerged from the Qliphoth. But I mean, like, who didn't really, so, you know. Moving forward to its abilities, Plumede in Nacht's Devil Union form is called Felice, as Plumede's characteristic is agility. With this form, Nacht's physical speed is increased exponentially, allowing him to dodge a couple of attacks by 2 high-ranking devils.
Above the mid-ranking devils, high-ranking devils lie somewhere in between mid-ranking and the supreme devils, meaning they're more powerful in their own right. However, they can't quite measure up to the same level of power as the supreme devils. The only high-ranking devils we know the full story of is Zagred. As gross as this dude looks, nothing compares to the ugliness of his story. Basically, Zagred was behind the elf massacre 500 years ago, where he possessed a Clover Kingdom minister and became the puppet master of the royal. He was the one who concocted the plot to steal the elves' magic. Zagred trapped the first Wizard King from attending his wedding while the magic tool was absorbing the elves' magic. He attacked the elves with a fake version of the first Wizard King's light magic, tricking Licht into thinking that it was Lumiere who betrayed them. This was basically a ploy to have Licht fall into despair over his best friend's betrayal and turning his 4-leaf grimoire into a 5-leaf, so that Zagred could take over Licht's body and be present in the living world with his full power. However, not wanting his body to be taken over by a devil, Licht transforms into a giant demon, forcing Lumiere to kill his best friend and also die in the process. Zagred then tried to steal Licht's 5-leaf grimoire. However, Sekre was there just in time to use the magic stone to try and seal him in an eternal prison. But it doesn't just end there, as before the seal could even complete, Zagred summons the magic stones to himself and uses them to suspend the elves and his soul to reanimate into the future. 500 years later, Zagred is then unsealed from this prison alongside Patry, who shows up inside William's body. Zagred then waits patiently for years and years as Patry manages to create the Eye of the Midnight Sun and collects all of the magic stones in the hopes of reviving the rest of the elves. But this was all a plan by Zagred to summon the Shadow Palace and use the magic stones to summon his body from the underworld. However, the Magic Knights of the Clover Kingdom, alongside reincarnated First Wizard King and Licht, make quick work of Zagred, destroying his heart and killing him in the process. Honestly, Zagred is arguably the most detestable being in Black Clover universe, not just because of his actions, but through his looks too. I mean, just look at him, bro. He has 2 black horns, a pair of black bat-like wings, claw-like hands, and super pale skin with some black thing growing all over. And don't forget all those freaking mouths all over his body that scream shit like, die!
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
But as nasty as Zagred looks, his power is on a different level. Not only does he possess more mana than the elves, he can possess both humans and elves, allowing him to disrupt their plans at will and create confusion too. This ability played a key role in his strategy as he possessed many people, including David Swallow and Ronnie. Now let's talk about Zagred's most iconic and interesting ability, the Kotodema magic. Firstly, this magic is granted to Zagred by his 5-leaf grimoire, which was originally a 4-leaf grimoire possessed by Patry but became corrupt when Patry basically fell into despair. The Kotodema magic basically allows Zagred to manifest anything that he speaks of, may it be a weapon, somebody else's magic attribute, anything. It doesn't seem like he needs any form of practice to copy someone's magic either. So far, he has copied complex magic like the dice, light, and switching magic. Furthermore, he can keep doing this almost instantly, as long as he can speak before he gets attacked. Through word magic, Zagred created a special trident which dismantles anything it touches, may it be a living being or magic. It also distorts the space around it, making it a little harder for people like Yami to deal damage head on when Zagred is wielding this weapon. With this magic, Zagred can summon a number of monsters from the underworld too. The most notable one would be those little monsters that suck on one's mana and life force when they come in contact with a living being. Zagred also possesses reincarnation magic, as he can reincarnate a soul by sacrificing a living being. This is how the elves were revived. Through these magic techniques, Zagred can defeat almost anybody when fighting one-on-one, since he can simply keep countering people's abilities with ease. Then he can attack them with his trident and put an end to them easily. He was chosen as the first devil antagonist for a reason after all, where you needed Yami, Asta, the freaking first Wizard King, Licht. They needed everyone just to contain this dude and finally get rid of him.
Our next devils are none other than Nahamah and Lillith, the 2 high-ranking supreme devils linked to the Tree of Qliphoth residing in the first level of the underworld. These 2 are extremely alike, yet also the polar opposite of each other too. Now you may be asking yourself, what do you mean? What are these demons? Well, these demons are still linked to angels, and as he often does, Tabata has mixed different mythologies to create the ones we see in Black Clover. Lilith, also known as the Queen of the Night, is described as a beautiful woman, usually with pale white skin, in a dress shamefully showcasing her sexuality. Hence why her pair of absolute badonkadonks are always out on show. Yes, that's right, this is actually mythologically accurate fan service, ladies and gentlemen, I'll have you know. Lilith also goes by the name of the Angel of Prostitution, which explains her angelic looking wings. Lilith is also in the lowest realm of the Tree of Qliphoth, which makes sense that she and Nahamah were two of the first devils to appear through the gate. How? Well, if we compare the layout of the 7 gates and the devils, then finally the Tree of Qliphoth, they don't match. Since the Tree of Qliphoth is the opposite to the Tree of Life, it's fair to turn it upside down, which if you see now is much more accurate to the layouts of the devils in the Tree of Qliphoth, which would make Lilith and Nahamah be the first 2 devils to come out of the first gate. But another detail which directly links to the Kabbalah is the fact that Lilith actually marks the opening of the gate to the Sitra Ara, also known as the Other Side. This directly correlates to the story in Black Clover, where Lilith is one of the 2 devils that mark the initiation process of the first gate to hell being opened along with Nahamah. Now the name the Queen of the Night could also explain her ice magic, since nighttime can be associated with the cold as it's the time of day where the sun goes down, which then brings us on to Nahamah, where I will explain how the 2 are also the opposites, because Nahamah uses fire magic, and while reading this book, Nahamah's parts were often associated with heat and fire. In fact, there is even the Luciferian flame and the Great Bonfire mentioned, which further backs up their differences and why they use their respective magic attributes. That being said, while Lilith remains extremely accurate to the Kabbalah counterpart, Nahamah actually experienced some changes. For example, Nahamah is described as a female devil in the Kabbalah, as Nahamah is actually Lilith's sister, which probably explains why the 2 of them look so similar in Black Clover. Yet in Black Clover, Nahamah is a he, I think. And alongside Lilith is an angel of prostitution, yet he has devil wings in Black Clover. According to the story, Lilith was the first wife of Adam, the one before Eve. She and Adam were created together at the same time from the soil of the earth. But while she wanted equality, Adam wanted to dominate the relationship. As a result, Lilith flew up to heaven with fury, screaming the secret name of God, and left the Garden of Eden. After that, she settled in caverns on the shores of the Red Sea, where she gave birth to hundreds of demons every day. In Qliphothic symbolism, these caverns form the body of the Queen of the Night, which is the title attributed to the first Qlipha of the Dark Tree, and is also the title of Lilith as the ruling force of Sitra Ara, aka the Other Side. For the same reason, the first Qlipha is called the Womb of Lilith, or the Cave of Lilith, and it is believed to be the entrance to the dark side of the tree. The dark forest through which Dante walks to find the gate to hell in his Divine Comedy is one of the most famous examples of this concept. So since we know Tabata is inspired from Dante's Inferno as well, it is now even more clear where these inspirations come from. But now that we've covered where they took their inspiration, let's talk about their abilities and story. As high-ranking supreme devils, Nahamah and Lilith are capable of frightening power, which exceeds even the Dark Triads. In fact, their magic power is so strong that it could easily destroy Nacht's Devil Union mode Equus, a feat that even Dante in his 80% devil form couldn't achieve, which further shows how strong the 2 of them can be. Nacht feared they were so strong in fact that he already chose to sacrifice his own life along with his devils in order to just stall Nahamah and Lilith in the dark prison. Not kill, stall. His life is only worth stalling them. Nacht mentioned in chapter 287 that these high-ranking devils' magic can burn and freeze through anything. It transcends normal magic of the same attribute, since Nacht mentions it can destroy shadows, light, and even invisible concepts that don't physically exist. We saw this in action when Nacht uses his Monument of Atonement spell, trying to trap Nahamah and Lilith into the world of shadows with him where there is no light, life, or death. But before he can even do that, they break free like a Pokemon escaping from a Pokeball, effortlessly breaking his spell. Something unique to Nahamah is the ability to turn his body into fire, making him immune to any physical attacks such as punches and swords because they pass straight through, as well as also being able to dodge and weave by merging with and moving between his own flames too. Using this immense fire magic, Nahamah can create incredibly powerful bullets made of fire, waves of flames, and even blazing twisters which obliterate everything in its path. The same also applies to Lilith, but their true power truly comes out when the two fuse together. Lilith's right half connects with Nahamah's left, making one half ice and one half fire, with two eyes on the top of each other in the middle of their face. Nacht states in chapter 289 that their power now has more than just doubled. Their magic was so insane that Nacht felt like he was going to go crazy. When fused like this, their fire and ice attributes are combined, giving them access to use both together, even simultaneously. Together they managed to instantly create a ball of magic which dwarfed the entire Spade Kingdom. However, despite this power, during their final fight against Asta's Union mode, Nahamah and Lilith experienced fear for the first time in centuries. Whereas back in the underworld, Liebe wouldn't have been able to fight against such high-ranking devils, with Asta's help, the two of them can now match them and even defeat them with relative ease. Moving on, we have Lucifugus, who is also one of the highest ranking devils connected to Black Clover's Tree of Qliphoth. But to understand Lucifugus' story so far, we have to look into Nacht's backstory with his brother Morgan. The two are twins. They look exactly the same, but their personalities and lifestyles couldn't be more different. Morgan was the moral Jesus of the two, always doing the right thing and loving everyone as well as being loved by everyone, which certainly reminds us of Asta, thus explaining why Nacht remembered his brother when he saw how Asta speaks and acts. Naturally, Morgan joined the Magic Knights and lived to protect the people of his kingdom, while Nacht rejected that kind of life, as he desired only to live for himself, and thus did things that many didn't approve of, making him the target of people's rejection and avoidance. When Nacht turned 18 years old, his parents asked to see him. He assumed he was in for some big lecture, now that he was of the age to become the head of the family, and he wanted no part in it, wishing to leave all that responsibility to his sibling. But what he would come to find out absolutely shocked him. His parents actually wished for him to carry the Faust family, and they revealed what their family's true practice was. It turns out that the Faust family were actually dedicated to the study of devils, and they wanted Nacht to continue on that legacy of being knee-deep in knowledge of super satanic shit and, you know, all that stuff that would have us holding out our crucifixes out in front of us and splashing our holy water everywhere.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Nacht's initial reaction was one of nervousness, but also excitement. The temptation he felt far outweighed his fear, as he saw this as something that was just as beautiful as it was scary, and the feelings of spite inside him were absolutely delighted. All his life, Nacht had felt like an outcast, the one that nobody understood, the one that had no place in the world, while Morgan fit in perfect, but now Nacht finally felt like the one that belonged, while Morgan was the one that had no place there. He felt ego, pride, jealousy, and many other sins that link back to Lucifer and his inspirations that Tabata has used. Now, while Morgan and Yami defended the kingdom from outside evil, Nacht buried himself in the study of a different kind of evil from within the country. So much so that, in almost no time at all, he had 4 contracts with 4 different devils. He was able to control their abilities shockingly well, and so was called a genius by his father. In time, Nacht's ego had grown, and he believed it was time to surpass his limits. He was offered something extremely dangerous by that very expert, a relic that had a relation to one of the highest ranking devils, Lucifugus, who rules the underworld. And that's not to be mixed up with Lucifero, by the way. I know that their names are kind of confusing, but they are 2 completely different devils. Nacht accepted the relic, but before he could use it, his brother Morgan revealed himself from among the cloaked people in the background. He demanded for Nacht to stop before he made a grave mistake, and lectured his family about how they were sinning, and that it was too dangerous. But Nacht only saw that as more of a reason to do it, as he loved the thrill of this practice. Nacht was falling into this desire in the same way that the Dark Triad. Nacht decided against Morgan's warning, and chose to put the relic on. Suddenly, Lucifugus appeared, responding to Nacht's actions, and thus ended up killing everybody there. Nacht thought that it shouldn't have been able to happen, as its power should have been suppressed during the ritual, but regardless of his power being weakened, Lucifugus is still strong enough to effortlessly kill all of the spectators present. It's here that Nacht realizes what he had done, and that he should have listened to his brother. Nacht was too scared to move and try and undo the ritual, and so Morgan did it himself and made Lucifugus disappear. Of course, not without a price. This explains why Nacht stated he hates the surpass your limits idea and phrase that the Black Bulls so often use, as he himself hates everything that he had done and what it represents. Nacht held Morgan in his arms as he laid on death's door. He yelled out to God, asking him to save his brother, as he hadn't done anything wrong, but he knew it was hopeless. No one would be saving him now. He then had to live with his actions, as he himself was the cause of everybody's death due to having ego, pride, and jealousy. Nacht realized that he was not worthy, loathing in his mistakes as he fell into a deep sin. His brother Morgan told him that one of his dreams was to work with his twin brother. He wanted to save the world and make a difference by protecting the peace with light and shadow together. However, Nacht had not seen the light per se and didn't heed to his brother's words. Lucifugus, according to the Grand Grimoire, is the Prime Minister of Hell that does the dealings and intercedes for the Kings of Hell, just as it was mentioned in chapter 286. Lucifugus is from the Grand Grimoire and the Grand Grimoire alone, meaning he does not exist in any other source of demonology. Lucifugus is actually the Prime Minister of Lucifer, despite their names meaning the complete opposite. Anyways, the Grand Grimoire is significant because it holds the feature of being able to hold special pacts between the magicians and Lucifugus, so that they can get his customer support, meaning that his services will open up for magicians who hold this special pact. But if the magician fails to withhold the conditions of the contract, their soul and body will be taken by Lucifugus, which sounds similar to Mephistopheles taking Faust's soul if Faust had lost the bet. This form of special pacts is also clearly the same as the one that Asta makes with Liebe in chapter 270. And so that pretty much sums up Lucifugus's impact and role in the story thus far. Moving on, we've got Dante. Dante grew up in the Spade Kingdom, where he became dissatisfied with life, not being able to find joy in anything. Even when he joined the Spade Kingdom's military forces, killing others still didn't bring him any joy. Later on, he takes part in a coup d'etat, killing the king, overthrowing the royal family of the Spade Kingdom, including Yuno's family, subsequently ruling over the kingdom alongside his siblings as the Dark Triad. 16 years later, after Dante sent Zenon to invade the Diamond Kingdom to test his abilities, Dante held a meeting with the rest of the Dark Triad, deciding it's time for war and their plan to take over the world to proceed. Subsequently, the orders are given for Vanica to apprehend Lola Pacheca, Zenon to William, and Dante to retrieve Yami. After arriving at the Black Bull's base, learning of Yami's absence, Dante tries to find joy by attacking the Black Bull members. This is where Dante first meets our boy Asta, Vanessa, and Grey, 3 arcane level mages whom he takes great interest in, so much so that he declares he will make Vanessa and Grey his wives. Eventually, after fighting the members and leaving Gauche in a critical condition, Yami appears to save the day. Dante begins fighting Yami and later Asta too, where he begins to display the true effects of his power, but we will talk more about that a little bit later. After Asta makes a deal with Liebe, Asta uses the final second of his newfound power to take Yami's katana and inflict a large wound across his chest, leaving Dante laying on the ground defeated. But he is saved by Zenon before Yami can restrain him, taking both of them back to the Spade Kingdom with him. After Dante takes up his position in the Qliphoth ritual, Nacht and Jack infiltrate the castle, confronting him. It's during this battle in which Dante learns that Nacht is a devil host, but he also gains access to 100% of his full devil power as the first gate is opened, releasing Nahamah and Lillith. After defeating Jack, Dante laughs excitedly seeing the devils and their malice. But Zora and Magna then arrive, which disgusts Dante as he is unimpressed by the weaklings. But little did he know that he'd get bodied by Magna's new soul binding ability. Once the battle is seemingly over and the other magic knights leave, Dante's body magic loses control, allowing Jack to land a final blow, incapacitating Dante. But now that we've gone over who he is and what he's been up to, it's time to explain just how he is able to do all of these evil things. Dante's magic attribute is body magic, which gives him the ability to manipulate the tissue tissue in his body to achieve many things some consider unnatural, such as healing himself, like when he recovered from Jack's slashes, as well as also altering his physical appearance, like in the fight with Asta and Yami where he turned himself into a freaking giant with additional limbs. However, his magic doesn't just end there, as by being Lucifer's devil host, he has access to his gravity magic. He can manipulate the strength of the gravity of objects, including himself, making them lighter to increase the speed and agility of himself, or by making them heavier, allowing him to increase the strength and durability of both himself and other objects too. This obviously then makes him difficult to fight against, as his moves become unnatural, which makes it difficult for someone like Yami to handle, as his swordsmanship became unpredictable. He can also use the same technique to manipulate the gravity surrounding an individual, seemingly freezing them in place. And last but not least, he can even warp the space around him, making it easy to dodge even Asta's attacks. And I mean, they come with added protagonist powers. Naturally, he can use up to 80% of Lucifer's power, which allows him to even nullify Vanessa's red thread of fate and even obliterate mountains. And then, like we mentioned earlier, after the first gate is opened, he gains access to 100% of his devil power. That being said, Dante's never actually won a fight, as they've either been interrupted by third parties or he straight up loses.
Okay, so next on the devil rankings we have Megicula, devil of the curses. And to understand Megicula, we first have to look at her devil host, Vanica-sama. Basically the best character in all of Black Clover, let's be honest. Vanica is always seeking fun in different ways, as she loves a challenge in her sadistic actions. As we saw with her fights against Noelle, Vanica got so wet at the challenge that they literally fought underwater. Okay, for real though, she was having too much fun. This was her whole character. Act crazy, get defeated, and have her devil help out so she doesn't lose. Wait, what? Isn't that like the whole Dark Triad?
Well, let's be nice. Let's be nice. We don't have to go there. I mean, you're not wrong, but you didn't have to say it.
In fact, she was even taking L's back in the past, where she almost died to Azure Silver, and Megicula had to come in and use her curse magic to let Vanica escape. Furthermore, during the Spade War, Vanica was finally pushed to her maximum limit with the efforts of Noelle, Charlotte, Rill, and Gaja. As Noelle is on the verge of killing Vanica, Megicula finally makes her full entrance, forcing herself to manifest on Vanica's eye, eventually taking over her body and spreading decaying worlds all throughout the battlefield. With the manifestation of Megicula, we learn more about her. Considered to be one of the highest ranking devils in the Tree of Qliphoth, she has big ass ram horns that come out of her head and a smaller pair which come out of her forehead. Her appearance looks gross just like all the other devils, but Megicula basically looks like a doll with a lot of tentacles and some bat-like wings. In her quest to manifest her body into the living world, Megicula needed to kill 3 powerful mages of the same sex. In control of Vanica's body, her blood magic, plus her curse magic, Megicula fights Noelle, Rill, and Charlotte, but with the power of plot armor, I mean sheer will and tenacity, Noelle and the gang defeat— oh wait, no, my bad. Asta flies in out of nowhere and nullifies Megicula's power. Hold up.
Hold on, what?
Now scared for her life, Megicula quickly tries to kill both Vanica and Lucifugus to manifest, but Charlotte's anti-curse magic stops her. All the Magic Knights, including Noelle's brother Nozell, show up and finally dispel Megicula from the living world. Megicula was freaking strong. It basically took Charlotte, Rill, Noelle, Luck, Gaja, Nozell, and a boost from Asta to bring her down. You could honestly argue that everyone who fought Megicula there was captain level, or at least near that stage, except maybe Luck. That's the amount of force it took to bring Megicula down. Not only that, but she showed immense magic power as a devil, and Lucifugus even considers her stronger than Zagred with more mana than the strongest elves in chapter 228. Although her magic power is frightening, Megicula's curse wording magic is on another level. She is able to use malevolent curses to harm her opponents and weaken most spells. She can even use her curse for healing and even give Dark Disciples curse amplified powers, and not to mention she just summoned like 100 Dark Disciple simps out of nowhere. And don't forget, it is also her curse powers which set the condition for her manifestation after after killing 3 great female mages. Megicula's curse is so strong that it was able to dispel Sekira's arcane stage spell in chapter 252. She also has her decaying world spell, which if not for Rail's Valhalla activation would have killed everyone on the battlefield and ended the war right there. Additionally, Megicula also possesses her vessel Vanica's blood magic, which has the spells that shape blood into flying slashes and even beasts made out of blood. And finally, Megicula also possesses Asir's steel magic. You guys remember Asir was once said to be on par with the Wizard King, and maybe if she didn't die, she could have probably become the next Wizard King.
Now let's talk about Zenon. As you know already, the 3 members of the Dark Triad have signed a contract with a strong devil, and Zenon's devil is Beelzebub himself. He is known for capturing both Yami, the captain of the Black Bulls, and William Vengeance, captain of the Golden Dawn. During his time in the series, Zenon has shown himself to be a ruthless, cruel individual who only cares about his goal. He talks about the uselessness of sentiments towards comrades quite often, stating that it only hinders him in battle and that a human's true emotions are nothing but evil. However, there's much more to him than that. During his fights, we learn about what he went through in his backstory, how it shaped his mindset, and his way of achieving his goals. As a child, Zenon was bullied quite often for his magic attribute, as it was considered weird and creepy. Zenon could control the bones in his body and shape them in any form. Anybody with good fighting experience knows that this is an amazing ability that provides both offensive and defensive capabilities. But oh well, kids are kids. So Zenon was always bullied. However, one fateful day, a kid named Alan came to his rescue with his fire magic. It seems like the other kids knew Alan very well since they ran away as soon as they saw him. Zenon and Alan became great friends since then, on top of being rivals. Actually, Alan told Zenon about his dream of becoming the commanding officer of the Spade Kingdom Defense Force and helping the people of the country, the equivalent of being Wizard King in the Clover Kingdom. So inspired by their shared dream, Zenon declared that he'd also become the commanding officer too and support Alan's noble cause. Sounds awfully similar to someone else's story, right? Asta and Yuno. If you remember Yuno's past, then you'll see a lot of similarities between the two. This bright, cheerful kid named Asta the Goat helped Yuno when he was pestered by an adult, and Zenon was helped by Alan, who happens to look just like Asta, another bright and cheerful kid. Both Asta and Alan inspired their friend to become a person of importance, the Wizard King and the commanding officer respectively. Zenon and Alan passed the exams and become a part of the 4th division of the defense force, similar to the Magic Knights. There, the reaction to Zenon's abilities was similar to that of Yuno, where the two were considered prodigies who were almost guaranteed to make a name for themselves. On the other hand, both Asta and Alan were rather appalling, but the two strive to become better over time. The parallels continue with Zenon and Alan's first mission being in a dungeon, where things take an unexpected turn. For Asta and Yuno, it was the interference of the Diamond Kingdom, especially Mars, whereas for Zenon and Alan, it was a mid-ranking devil. Literally everybody present on the scene was shocked. Devils aren't a daily sight after all, and they are really strong. It was confusing for the viewers as well, since devils can only make it to the living world if they have contact with a human. Well, if you look into Zenon's family, you'll find something a bit fishy. Zenon is the youngest of the 4 siblings, and his family has connections with the devils. In fact, his eldest brother believed that Zenon had the highest potential for forming the best contract with a high-ranking devil. Zenon was originally supposed to become a devil host, but he had a change of heart after meeting Alan and became a good person. He was inspired to join the defense forces instead, but why would Zenon's brother try to kill him? That doesn't make any sense, right? Exactly. That's why the next part is really crucial. If you can remember the outcome of Asta and Yuno vs Mars, it was a win for the two with with no casualties, right? Well, this is the key. Zenon and Alan fought the devil with everything they had, but they didn't stand a chance. Alan wasn't strong enough to deal any fatal damage to the devil, whilst Zenon did have the potential to kill the devil. However, his attacks simply couldn't land. They weren't fast enough yet. During the climax of the fight, Alan charged in straight to attack the devil as a distraction, and he knew he was going to sacrifice himself. Whilst Zenon stood behind him, he realized that at that very instant he could hit the devil, but it would have to be through his best friend. Struck with this dilemma, Zenon thought hard about the consequences of his actions. He could either kill his best friend and save the lives of his other comrades and of other people living in nearby towns, but therefore live with the burden of killing a friend, or he'd have to put his faith into an almost impossible chance of winning and hope for the best. Zenon had made up his mind, and he screamed in pain and agony as he killed the devil and his best friend at the same time. He felt utterly powerless as he had to use his comrade as a shield to survive. With this feeling inside his heart and mind, Zenon went back to his brother and pleaded to him so that he could become a devil host and protect the ones he loves. Zenon then formed a contract with Beelzebub, one of the highest ranked devils. His contract with Beelzebub gave him this new attribute of magic called spatial magic. This magic attribute allows him to create spatial cubes that let him dominate and negate the mana trapped within them. These cubes can vary in size and number, all according to Zenon's wish. So with these two insanely strong attributes of magic, Zenon had almost become invincible, taking him very close to his wish of protecting the Spade Kingdom. Zenon is the reflection of Yuno. Everything up to this point has been the same for the two, with one exception however. Zenon didn't have the power of plot armor with him. Now let me explain. Zenon's decision to kill Alan steered him to the darker part of fate, and the two walked parallel to each other until their battle, and all that's left was to see who chose the right path. At first, it felt as if there was no right choice. At 80% of his strength, Zenon was under immense pressure from Yuno. In fact, he actually got one shot. However, things changed after the first gate of the Qliphoth opened. Zenon finally unleashed 100% of his and Beelzebub's power, which made his bones even stronger, and their regeneration rate was impossible to beat. Yet again, Zenon loses to Yuno and Langris and thinks about his past in his final moments. Still, Zenon wasn't ready to give up and placed everything on the line for a chance to kill Yuno and Langris. He offered his soul and body to Beelzebub in exchange for a devil's heart. Beelzebub accepted this and effectively made Zenon into a devil. Now, in his final and strongest form, Zenon seemed invincible. His bone magic couldn't be overpowered, his spatial magic was out of this world, and he also had a new sword named Dante Lucifero, a weapon that could rupture space around it. Since Yuno and Langris were an arcane stage, he didn't have the need to fear the two anymore. Hence, he declared his victory even before landing the final blow. Well, you know what happens with anime villains who celebrate too early, right? Yeah. Before Zenon could launch his attack, Yuno received his second grimoire, which allowed him to enter Saint stage, making him an arcane level mage. As we know, only arcane level mages can kill the high ranking devils, as I explained earlier in the video. Hence, Zenon was in a seriously bad spot. Over time, Zenon lost to Yuno's Saint Spirit of Zephyr. As he crumbles away, Zenon notes that he and Yuno are awfully similar and asks his parallel about what made them two so different. Yuno replies that he doesn't even know himself, since he hasn't completed the promise he made to Asta yet. In his last moments, Zenon kind of gets his answer and strengthens Asta and Yuno's bond. It is apparent that the reason Yuno survived the fight was that he didn't abandon his comrade and their shared dream. Since it's his bond with Asta, Langris, the second grimoire, being a royal, having the wind spirit that let Yuno win. So let's talk about the inspiration Tabata had to create the Beelzebub devil. Well, Beelzebub has many titles like Lord of the Flies, as well as the Prince of Devils, since he's Lucifer's right hand man. In some interpretations, he's also known as Baal in the Kabbalah, who is under Lucifugus, the devil that was mentioned during Nacht's backstory. An important detail about Beelzebub and Zenon relates to one of the many names the demon goes by, Lord of the Flies. Now, you won't guess what this man did with his flying ability. And I'm not making this up, this dude literally used to fly around eating excrements.
Come on now, dog. Come on, man.
His devouring of excrements could be seen as a metaphor for taking the souls of the lowly who succumb to lust and power, and then end up making a deal with Beelzebub, in turn falling from grace just like him, who was a commanding general once in heaven before he fell. Zenon, when accepting Beelzebub, he becomes just like the kids who bullied him in his childhood. A piece of shit. Beelzebub isn't like Liebe, he loves human torment and wants to destroy them. Beelzebub in his story is a former seraph from the Tree of Life, but turned high-ranking demon who is considered one of the 7 princes of hell and oversees the Order of the Fly. Beelzebub was an angel. He was said to be of Lucifer's order, meaning that he was part of the Morning Star Choir or circle. He was amongst the angels that Lucifer would converse with. Beelzebub's ability to keep up with Lucifer impressed him and placed great trust in him. At some point before the war in heaven, Beelzebub found and consorted with Nahamah, a sister of Eve, who was created to be one of the potential candidates as Adam's wife after Lilith's departure by the Red Sea. Beelzebub conducted himself in the war by being one of Lucifer's commanding officer, but then when they lost, they were all condemned to hell together.
So now let's talk about Moris and how he is connected with Lucifer. Moris's story begins in the Diamond Kingdom where he was born. He was blind by birth but was still capable enough to receive a grimoire at the age of 15. Moris has modification magic, which allows him to stitch together anything. That's right, anything. That includes intangible concepts such as Dorothy's glamour world. He uses it in a pretty standard way where he uses the flesh of the devils to create abominations. He also used his modification magic to fuse both Mars and Fana's grimoires together, being the only man in the series to have fully broken the laws of the world, as grimoires are stated to be indestructible. God damn! He quickly became evil in the Diamond Kingdom, as he secretly ran things behind the scenes through the king by doing experiments and increasing the power of the Diamond Kingdom mages through the magic he was blessed with. For example, his modification magic allowed him to recreate Ladros's grimoire, which then allowed him to absorb, store and release mana. This increase in military strength allowed the kingdom to invade others and help its economy even further. As he performed these sorts of experiments on all the generals and mages, thus Moris gained a lot of political control over the kingdom. However, after their failed invasion of the Clover Kingdom, sometime after, since Mars became a good person through the connection with Asta using his Talk no Jutsu, when Mars returned to the Diamond Kingdom, he ousted Moris from his position out of the Diamond Kingdom by making his atrocities public. This includes the experiment he did on himself and other children throughout the years with the Mage Stones, which sacrificed many lives and innocent people for his own selfish desires. With Moris not having a home anymore, he immigrated to the Spade Kingdom. He then uses his knowledge and technology in service of the Dark Triad. He designed the Candelos to harvest magic for the Tree of Qliphoth ritual, which Asta famously destroyed when he first showed us his time skip powers. When Dante returns with serious injuries, losing to Yami and Asta, Moris uses a healing chamber to close the wound and strengthen him. And this is when the greatest opportunity of all came to him. After Vanica returns with Lollapalooza, Moris became a host for Lucifer by making a deal. This enhances his own modification magic, which then allows him to extract the Heart Queen's inherited knowledge and the new information she had from the Heart Queen history books regarding the previous devil invasion that succeeded. This is where Moris analysed the information to develop a method that accelerates the Qliphoth ritual. His presence acts as an additional accelerant for the growth of the Tree of Qliphoth, and the first gate opens, allowing Nahamah and Lillith to come through. Moris is watching the devils climb out of the gate when part of the spell's magic array disappears. He realises that Dante lost, but then he further modifies the ritual tree so that it can continue running without the Dark Triad. And then once the Dark Triad had completely lost, the story then skipped to an off-screen defeat of Dorothy by Moris's hands. Lucifer then speaks through Moris and warns that the next gate will open soon and that he will be free. Moris stitches multiple multiple devils together into one and uses it to attack Lotus, who betrayed him. However, the raging black bull crashes through the castle wall just in the nick of time to save Lotus. The bull punches through the devil, smashing it to smithereens. Moris is then intrigued about the arcane stage mages he heard from Dante. He creates claw-like tentacles from his fingertips and begins disassembling the base, even negating Vanessa's fate manipulation magic. However, Grey, with Gaucher's help, transmutes the tentacles into flowers. Moris then switches to gravity magic and attempts to crush the base, but Henry, with Gordon's help, introduce their new time skip powers, where they drain Moris's magic power and use it to reinforce the base instead and punch Moris right in the face. This then smashes him into the side of the floor opening. Moris is confused and outraged, since he made himself into a higher being and contracted with the greatest devil, but eventually he gets betrayed by Lucifer himself, as Moris was nothing more than a mere tool. Moris dies as Lucifer extracts all of his life force to accelerate the spell even further to make sure that he releases once that second gate is open. Moving on, we have the strongest and highest ranking devil, Lucifer, who is one of the three kings of hell. He is the devil possessing both Dante and Moris. Now, not a lot has been said about Lucifer outside of his monstrous strength, being able to put down an entire kingdom with his presence alone, which I mean is a pretty big deal, let's be honest. But it is also stated that if Lucifer is taken out of hell, the entire world would perish under his control. In fact, the previous Heart Queen in chapter 252 from centuries ago wrote in a book that 90% of the population would die on the entire continent if he was to be released. Lucifer is most likely the one to have instigated the plan to bring all the devils to the living world through the advent of Qliphoth. He promised Asta's mother when he killed her that he would find another way out of the underworld after the plan of taking over Liebe's body failed. Lucifer, and most likely the fourth Zagratis sibling, reveals the details of the advent to the Dark Triad as we saw them with the research papers that Nacht stole back in chapter 246. This is why Nacht has the most knowledge out of everyone on how the spell works and what their plan should be to counter it. Thanks to the Heart Queen going through the knowledge of the past, we know that the advent had happened before. Putting one and one together tells us that Lucifer instigated the plan back then, which is exactly why he knows how to achieve his goal. This is also supported by the fact that both the keys of the underworld, Yami and William, both have abnormal circumstances regarding their magic. William inherits a curse from his mother's clan, and as we all know, curses originated from devils, and they can change the shape of one's soul, which is intricately connected to your magic. This is seen when Charlotte has her red roses turned into blue roses after being cursed by someone. William's forehead also straight up looks like it had been affected by the same life force sucking spell from the fight with Zagred, which points to Lucifer's interference. William was also the host for Patry, who had been reincarnated into him. What's interesting is that these two don't share any kind of similarity. This means that perhaps originally William was supposed to have light magic, but the curse interfered with the shape of his soul and made him have world tree magic just for the sake of the advent of Qliphoth. Yami, on the other hand, was potentially fully isekai'd into the Clover Kingdom. If you want to know more about Yami's home country regarding the land of the rising sun, by the way, then watch the video that's being displayed to you right now, as we cover all the secrets of where Yami is from. This includes the inspirations it takes into Black Clover and more. So make sure you're on the same page as our community by watching it and, of course, hitting that notification bell. Anyways, Yami came to the Clover Kingdom around the same time that Lucifer took over Liebe and killed Lasita, making that promise that I mentioned earlier. Currently in the story, Yami is 29 years old. Liebe came out of the underworld the same day that Asta was born, but was found by Lasita the day after. We know that Liebe was with Lasita for around about a year, and that Asta right now is 17. After doing some quick maths, we can find out that this happened 13 to 14 years ago, around about the same time that Yami came to the Clover Kingdom, because Yami didn't receive his grimoire until later when he became 15. Thanks to the Quartet Night story, we know that Yami spent some time without a grimoire too. That implies that Lucifer had a hand in both Yami having his dark magic as well as William having his world tree magic too. And this would explain why during all these years Lucifer did not make any move, as he simply needed to make the keys for the underworld to appear. That's why he made use of the devil hosts Moris and Dante to make his goals come true, as they were both manipulated, used and discarded by by Lucifer as soon as the opportunity came. Ever since Dante lost to Magna, he hasn't heard from Lucifer, even though his flesh magic regeneration is becoming rampant due to his devil power going out of control. Moris, on the other hand, was simply used as a sacrifice to speed up the advent of the Qliphoth tree. Lucifer wields an incredibly potent magic type, that being gravity magic. Gravity magic is busted because it's one of the foundations of the universe, and there's even hints that this isn't even his true magic affinity. So after all the members of the Dark Triad are defeated, all of the circles for the ritual of the advent of the Qliphoth tree disappear. However, the